struggling. Actually, there's seven possible reasons why your brand is struggling. They're not all the reason why, unless they are. Well, let's get into it. So I've been leaning into this branding space more and more throughout the year. And just a quick uh backstory on this. I got into branding because I realized that with all that I did, when it came to fashion, when it came to content creation, when it came to marketing, that all of these things like really encompassed an entire brand. It was not just one or the other, right? And so with that transition, I felt like my brand identity kind of went through a little crisis, a little bit more than a little crisis. So I'm giving you these reasons because I can relate to all of them. All seven reasons. I feel like I've been there at one point or the other, and I want to help you because they're actually very simple things. They're not always easy to fix, but they're very simple, and you can identify them, or if you need help identifying them, that's what we're here for. So let's get into these reasons. All right. So the first one is that you have become a character. Okay. So you have become a character in your brand. And when you think about what you see, when you see people who are online, you see influencers, you see people who have brands or have businesses, and they have, it's almost like they have presented themselves in a particular way. And there is now this pressure to keep up the image, right? So when I was doing this in my business, especially when it came to fashion. I had a really strong feeling of inadequacy. Like I felt inadequate and I felt like I was not qualified to speak in the fashion space. As a stylist, as a fashion designer, these were all feelings of inadequacy that I had. And so when I started off, I tried really hard to make my content and to make what I did look like people I looked up to. And so I would do my videos similarly. I would style myself similarly. I would take certain concepts that I saw them do that were successful and I would try to imitate those and, adapt them to kind of fit my personality. But all in all, y'all, to be real, it just was not me. It never worked. And I never saw success with it. No matter how hard I tried to fit into what I felt like a fashion influencer should do, my content, my marketing efforts never fit because I was not actually being true to who I was. I wasn't actually understanding what made me different and presenting my stuff in a way that maybe was not how I saw people doing it, but it was real. It was me, and it was what was needed in the world. And so I didn't start to see success with my fashion content in particular until I started to focus on the content that helped people, one, to dress themselves for where they were. I was really honing in on how can we use what we have already to still look good. What do we have at our disposal already? And I also focused on the inward part of styling and not so much the outward. So I still gave tips that were more practical that you could physically do, but I also started to address internally what was going on. Why are we the way that we are? Why do we dress the way that we do? Why do we have this aversion to clothes, or why do we feel a certain way about our bodies? And I noticed that that was a gap in the industry, and in any industry, honestly, that is still a gap, and that is where I shine because I can see it. Like I notice it. I'm like, you know what? That's an internal thing as well as an external thing, and it is impacting your ability to show up a certain way. So when I stopped being a character and I started to actually just be myself, I started to see more success in the performance of my content, and I started to see more people sign on as clients. So that was number one. You have become a character. And you know that you have become a character because you have to look at what everybody else is doing. You feel pressure to show up as a certain person or a certain way, and you are hiding aspects of yourself or trying to conform. So that's how you'll know. And it takes a moment sometimes for it to sink in, but when you know, you know. Okay. Number two is that your brand has lost definition. And so this one is interesting. I'm looking at the computer now because I have these on the computer. But this one is kind of similar. So this is one where this kind of goes back to the feelings of inadequacy, and you just like have become, you just like assimilated. You have just been like, you have just lost all sense of uniqueness. You have blended in, and it's almost like there is nothing that makes you recognizable or makes you stand out from what everybody else is doing in your industry. And that is so detrimental in this day and age because we have so many people with platforms and with voices, and we find ourselves looking at everyone else to make sense of what we should do when the answer is within, right? And so, like, that may sound like super lofty and spiritual, but it's the truth. Because even when it comes to branding, branding starts on the inside first, not on the outside. Your brand is the heart of your business. It is more often than not you at your core, your values, your morals, what you believe, reflected as a business, as a brand. So you don't know who you are, or if you are not showing up as yourself, that is going to hurt your brand in the long run, in the short run, honestly, not even in the long run. So the next one is this number three. Your engagement is no bueno. Okay. And when we're talking about engagement, we are not just talking about how many likes you get or how many views you get or what type of videos go viral. I find that it is more valuable to actually have people commenting, having people DMing you, having people tell you their experiences with you, having conversation. That is engagement to me. And you can have excellent engagement with a small amount of followers or a big amount of followers, but the engagement piece is where you start to is where you really are not seeing the results. And so I started to notice that when because I told you like my brand was going through like a little identity crisis, okay? And so I started to notice that when I was doing the fashion content always performed really well, especially on TikTok. And so when I started to shift my content from talking about fashion to talking about like being an influencer and content creation, I noticed a big change in my engagement. Now, at first, it felt like I felt like the engagement was plummeting because people didn't want to hear what I had to say. And so it took a minute because I had to get out of my own head with this and remind myself that no, what I have is valuable and is necessary and is important for me to show up this way. The problem was that I was still being inauthentic in the way that I was delivering the content. So this is what this looked like practically. I felt like because I was talking about branding that I had to create the types of videos that I saw other people creating in that same space. I forgot that my superpower was in my authenticity. So that meant that my videos have to speak to the heart of the matter. I can't just give you tips and tricks and strategies to do things without addressing why you're afraid to go live. I can't tell you to be consistent when I'm not addressing the fact that you don't feel qualified to even talk on this topic, and that is the reason why you don't want to post the content. That's the reason why you're scared to tell people that you do more than just being a content creator, that you do more than fashion, because there's a feeling of inadequacy there. And so that is still the gap that was missing. And that is what I brought to any space that I'm in, is that I get to the heart of the matter. And so when I was making my content, the engagement wasn't there because I was still being inauthentic with that. And I started off doing it the way that I saw everybody else doing it. And that was the key. So when I started to speak again on the heart of the matter, being true to who I am and how I see branding, that is when I started to see more results. And so when your engagement is plummeting, you literally don't know how people feel about your content, what they're doing with it, if it's helping them. Like these are all different metrics that you can't be successful without them. So that was my experience with my engagement plummeting. And that took me a few months to figure out. And oh, man, it was tragic. It was tough. I was really starting to doubt myself with that. But luckily, not even luck, it wasn't luck, but thankfully, I I started to understand what was happening, and I was able to shift and show up as myself again, even with a new topic, even though it really wasn't new, because I've always done branding, even if I didn't say it. Just a whole nother thing. The next thing is that your focus has shifted. And so that one could be related to what I just talked about with me like shifting from just being a fashion influencer to being a brand outfitter. But this can also be that you have things in your life that are going on and you're maybe having a hard time balancing it all. So when you have maybe your social life has picked up. And so now you maybe have more time to go live, or maybe you have more time to dedicate to creating content. And now you have to balance going out with friends, or you have to balance maybe having speaking engagements, or you have to balance going to vendor events or things for your children's school. Like, you have different things going on in your life. And so when you have those shifts, you can sometimes lose momentum, which is hard to navigate, but it is just an indication. Like you don't have to give up, but you have to make adjustments. And so that it just lets you know if you're it has my focus shifted, have things in my life transitioned, and how do I need to adjust so that I can still have my brand be strong without having to sacrifice my my personal life. And so sometimes that might look like for me that looked like kind of pulling back on the content that I was making all the time. So like when I before things started to like pick up for me and I didn't have as much going on personally, I was able to like crank out videos like it was nothing. Like I could make a bunch of videos in a week. I don't even have a number. Like I could just make a bunch of videos because I had time to do it. I had time to edit it, all of that stuff, right? And so even now, like I'm noticing that I have to offload some of those responsibilities, a lot of those responsibilities when it comes to the editing and just like the content creation process in general. And then also, I had to really pick up the skill of repurposing my content. So I had to be more strategic with my time. Doing things like lives is so much more beneficial because when I do lives, I have at least at minimum 10 minutes of video, which can be broken down and used in multiple places as short form video. So I don't post as many TikToks, but I still have content that I can use and disperse and put in different places. And then I also started to get more comfortable with creating content like on the go. So catching small clips of my day. What am I doing? And using that, putting those together to tell a story and using that for content too, as opposed to maybe having a whole staged thing and trying to do skits and different things that might require more time, more effort, and and just editing in general that I don't have time to commit to. So you make adjustments so that your brand can still be represented strong and consistently, but the consistency might look different from time to time. Okay, so that's number four. Your focus has shifted. Now, number five, and this one I definitely have had my share of experiences with it. So your brand keeps changing. And so this on the surface, it might look like what you do is changing. Okay. So like maybe you've gone from skincare to hair care, right? That is not your brand shifting. That is not what we're talking about here. So your brand, remember I told you your brand is the heart of your business. It is who you are. So let's say for instance, you are you started off and your brand had a really strong sense of sustainability, right? And this is something I've experienced too, I've dealt with. Really strong sense of sustainability. Like you are going strong for thrifted clothes and repurposing things, and that and you kind of like made that pillar of your brand. And then maybe somewhere down the line, maybe a few months down the line, now all of a sudden, you're out here partnering with Fashion Nova. That is a conflict of interest, okay? So you have to be careful. Your brand is allowed to evolve and it is allowed to change, but you, for the most part, your brand should be so solid that it doesn't actually change. It doesn't make drastic changes. Like people shouldn't say she's someone who really is a strong proponent of sustainability, and then all of a sudden I've just completely let that part of my life go, you know? And if it is a matter of you, maybe your interest changing and shifting, then you want to be mindful of not using certain things as a pillar. So even when it comes to sustainability for me, I have kind of like broadened my perspective on it, and I haven't made it such a it is still an important part of my brand, but it doesn't look it's not as like rigid as it used to be. Now you still won't see me promoting like Fashion Nova and other brands just because I just still don't personally I just don't like them. That part of me has not changed. But I don't necessarily ascribe to only wearing thrifted clothes. I think at one point I maybe was saying that, but I still can practice sustainability in other ways, in other aspects. So, but if that was something that was going to shift a lot, that won't be a part of my brand. There are certain things that have been a part of my brand and will never change. Like I would have to be a different person for them to change. Like my faith, creativity, relationships, like my family. Those are three things off the top that are not going to change. They're never going to change. It's always been who I am. And authenticity, being authentic. I don't do fake. I can't do fake. I'm not even a good liar. I can't do fake. So those are things that I can stand on as pillars of my brand. They are who I am at my core. They're not going to change ever. I've always been this person. So you want to make sure that you're not making your brand something that you don't honestly believe in or that you don't see as something that has been a constant in your life. So that is number 5. Your brand keeps changing. You're confusing people. They can't trust you. They don't know who you are. You're acting shady. You wouldn't even trust somebody like that. So if that's what's happening, that might be a reason why. Okay. Number 6 is that you do not have visibility. And this one's interesting because I mean, we are in a place now where you really do have to be able to be found. You have things like SEO, which is search engine optimization. You have keywords, hashtags, titles in your videos, the captions that you use, words that you say that are keywords that people are searching, your name itself, the name of your business, the name of your brand. So you have all of these different things that help you to be identified and to be discovered. And those can impact your brand too. Like people can maybe people just literally don't know that you're out there. They can't find you. But another aspect to visibility is actually in networking. So are you someone who has been you've been creating so much content and you've been talking about your brand, but you've been talking about it in a bubble. Like you have not actually branched out and put yourself in positions where you can meet new people, where you can make new relationships, where you can maybe go in spaces that you're not familiar with or that or you're not used to. But this allows you to be seen by new people. And so this is something that I realized, especially this year, that I had to make more of a priority. And even going into next year for myself and for everybody that I work with, that is going to be our goal is to expand our visibility beyond our immediate circle. So that can look like going into lives on TikTok, for let's say TikTok, for instance, going into lives with people that maybe are talking about a topic you're passionate about, but you don't know anybody in there just yet. So you get into the comment sections, you comment, or if you're able to go up and speak on the panel, go up and speak on the panel. Request to be a guest on someone's podcast. You can do a collaboration with someone. Reach out to somebody that you admire and say, "Hey, can we go live together? Can we do a Zoom call together?" And you can really start to build an amazing network, and your visibility will become so much easier because now you are putting yourself in a position to be seen by new people. And so that is something that a lot of people forget about. We think that all of it is on us. We have to be the ones solely by ourselves to get our names out there, to make us known. But a lot of times, people are going to be referring you. You're going to get business from referrals. You're going to get business from someone seeing you talk about something on live one day and now they follow you. You're going to see somebody who maybe like read an article that you did a guest article for, or they read an interview that you did for a blog. You just never know where you might be seen, and so you don't have to solely rely on I'm not posting enough. I got to post more. I got to put myself out there because you currently might be limited in your reach because you're not actually branching out and making yourself known to others. So visibility is another big one. It's a huge one that goes over a lot of our heads. Like we have to be making connections, we got to be building relationships. And if you are not good at building relationships, it's a whole nother thing that we have to work on. But that's number 6. Your visibility is capped right now. And then number 7 is that you are not focused on the future. And so this can look a few ways. So you might be stuck on the things that you've accomplished in the past. You might be one you that might be the kind of person that you are. And you're not giving yourself the opportunity to actually like push and believe for bigger. And this is one of the biggest things that I was struggling with is because I was short sighted in what I saw myself doing, and even when you're short sighted, it impacts your determination and your drive because once you get to a certain level, you're like, well, I don't know what's next. What do I have to look forward to? What am I working towards? Why am I doing this? You start to like really get in your head and lose your why. And so your why for what you're doing has to be bigger than where you are right now. And it needs to require work. It needs to require help. Like it needs to be something that you can't do by yourself. And it needs to be something that almost like scares you. Like it should like if it intimidates you, or maybe even overwhelms you, maybe not intimidate, but it might, but or even just like overwhelms you, like all of these things are signs that you are reaching for further. And I was doing this go back to when I started. I was doing this with my business because I was only looking at myself as a stylist this year, the beginning of this year. I was only looking at myself as a stylist and as like an influencer. And so, with those two things, I couldn't see where this was going. Like, I could see myself continuing to do it, but it was like, to what end? You know, like, what am I actually doing with this? Where am I going with this? And so it took me looking at my brand and really like dreaming with God on what that looked like dreaming bigger, thinking about the people I was going to impact, thinking about the goals that I have that may not come into fruition until like 5 years from now, because they are things that I got to really build towards. And I had to see it for more than where I am right now. And that was difficult because I was struggling with believing that I could do it. And so when you are not focused on the future, a lot of times what's happening is, much like me, you don't believe that you can do it. And I'm just going to keep that like that. You may disagree with me. I'm going to challenge you to really think about it and ask yourself, do I actually believe that I can do it? If you're struggling with seeing into the future, and I feel like the That's So Raven theme song, gaze into the future. But you're back on track, Jada. If you are having a hard time seeing further ahead, you might believe that you've done the best you can. You might believe that you like maxed out. And that's a scary place to be because you're still alive. You still have life to live. So there is still more for you to accomplish. And so that is another area where you have to think, well, why do I feel like that? Why don't I believe that I can do this? Why don't I see myself much further than where I am right now? And you can be content with where you are, but there should always be a determination to see more, to work towards more, a drive, a draw to do more. And if you're not there, if you're struggling to see it going anywhere, that's cause for concern. So, those are the 7 reasons why your brand is struggling. I feel like that's comprehensive. And I want you to let me know, which number do you feel like you might be at right now? What number are you? I'm going to go through them one more time. This feels like a class, y'all. I was not planning on doing this tonight, but we here. Okay, so number 1 is, you've become a character. Have you become a character? Number 2, your brand has lost definition. Number 3, engagement is plunging. Number 4, your focus has shifted. Number 5, your brand keeps changing. Number 6, you have no visibility. And number 7, you're not focused on the future. So, which one of those sounds like you? Where are you at in this? And I want you to really be honest about that. And once you're honest about it, I want you to be encouraged, because that means that if we can identify the problem, we can find a solution. So you don't have to feel stuck anymore, because you may be there right now. You may be feeling stuck with your brand. You might be feeling like, why am I doing this? You might be feeling like this is it for me because I just don't see no benefits in this. You may have been making content all year and you're just like, I don't think I'm good at this. I don't know if I feel like I made a mistake. Like, like, let's be real about it. Let's be open. But just know that there is, if you can identify the problem, that means we can find a solution. So be encouraged by that, be excited about that. And if you want help with it, I want you to join my For Trendsetters Only community. It's a Discord community, it's down there in the description box. I would love to have you. because we're going to be able to talk about these things together, and you can be in a community with people who get where you're at and where you're trying to go, and we can feel like we're not doing it by ourselves, because you're not. As long as you don't want to do it by yourself, you don't have to. So that's it, y'all. This turned into a 30-minute live. Wow. Wow. But I will be back tomorrow for day 21. Day 21 is tomorrow, y'all. And we will see what comes up on that one. Let's hope it is not another 30-minute one. It can be if it needs to be, but we'll see. But till then, I'll talk to y'all later.